Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding a Mishnah Berurah Chelik Beis, and we will be learning today Miras Hashem Daf Mem Zayin Amid Beis. We are continuing to learn Hilchos Netilas Yadayim. We pick up today on the very top line of Mem Zayin Amid Beis, Siman Kuf Nun Ches Sif Zayin. So, if you remember, we spoke last week at great length of the chiyuv for Netilas Yadayim, the chiyuv to wash hands, before eating a davar shetibuloi b'mashke. Before we eat a food that we dunk into one of the 7 mashkim. If you remember, we had the mnemonic Yad Shachat Dam. So the 7 mashkim, the 7 beverages, which would require Netilas Yadayim with the halacha of davar shetibuloi b'mashke, would be Yad stands for yayin and dvash. Shachat is shemen, which is shemen zayis, and ches is chalav. Milk, tes is tal, dew, and then dam. The dalet is actually dam, and the mem is mayim. We spoke out in the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah said, why do we have to mention dam? Nobody's eating a food that they dunk into dam, considering the fact that there's an issa daraisa to consume dam. And the Mishnah Berurah had 2 pshatim. One pshat that he has was kidin asba. We're not really mentioning dam in the context of the halacha of davar shetibuloi b'mashke, because in a chinami it doesn't apply. The only reason we mention dam is because once we're mentioning the shiva mashkim, dam is one of the shiva mashkim. So we just mentioned dam kidin asba. The other possible pshat that the Chavetz Chaim gave was an ill person who needs to consume dam for pikuach nefesh. He has to know that if he's eating something that he dips into dam, there would be a chiyuv of netilas yadayim for a davar shetibuloi b'mashke. We mentioned the very complex machlokes rishonim on whether or not this halacha of davar shetibuloi b'mashke is negeya nowadays or not. L'shitas HaTosfos, it's not negeya nowadays. It's really only a din in tahara. So it's a din that was negeya when we keeping the halachas of tumah v'tahara. Mehera yibana hamigdash, and we should be zoicha to all have to keep all of the halachas of tumah v'tahara, and then certainly the halacha of davar shetibuloi b'mashke will apply. You have other rishonim that say that this halacha of washing hands for davar shetibuloi b'mashke is also mishum srach truma, the same way netilas yadayim ala pas is, and the same way netilas yadayim ala pas is negeya nowadays, even though the whole mishum srach truma, we don't have kohanim eating truma nowadays, but we still keep netilas yadayim ala pas mishum srach truma. So too the chiyuv of netilas yadayim for davar shetibuloi b'mashke, these rishonim hold is negeya nowadays as well mishum srach truma. We saw that the Mishnah Berurah is really machriya that the halacha of netilas yadayim for davar shetibuloi b'mashke is negeya b'zman hazeh too, and the Mishnah Berurah says that we shouldn't be makel in it. This is a Mishnah Berurah share, so that's the hakra of the Mishnah Berurah. Other poskim say not. Be that as it may, now against that backdrop, we have Siman Kuf Nun Ches Sif Zayin, where the Mechaber says, "Not al yadav ledavar shetibuloi b'mashke." Let's say somebody was going to eat a davar shetibuloi b'mashke. So in Yonah D'Yoma, somebody's taking a slice of apple and he's dipping it in honey. So he's eating a davar shetibuloi b'mashke, which, in accordance with that halacha, would require netilas yadayim. So not al yadav ledavar shetibuloi b'mashke. This fellow went ahead and he washed netilas yadayim for a davar shetibuloi b'mashke. Now remember, even according to the Mechaber, even this halacha of davar shetibuloi b'mashke, we said that you wash your hands without making a bracha. That's what we saw on the very top of Mem Zayin Amud Aleph, tzarich netila b'loi bracha. But somebody went ahead and he washed netilas yadayim for a davar shetibuloi b'mashke. He washed netilas yadayim for a slice of apple dipped in honey. V'achar kach roitza lecha lechem. And now, after he had the farshbais, he had his appetizer of an apple dipped in honey, now he decides that he wants to eat a tunifer sandwich. So now he has a question. I just washed netilas yadayim, albeit without a bracha, but I just washed netilas yadayim for a davar shetibuloi b'mashke. Now I want to eat a sandwich. Do I need netilas yadayim ala pas? Or does my netilas yadayim for a davar shetibuloi b'mashke, does that cover my netilas yadayim ala pas? So says the Mechaber, Yesh mi shenera midvarov. There is one who we could see from his words, and the berachah brings this down from a smak. He says, Yesh mi shenera midvarov, she'ein oisa netila oilaloi. There is one who suggests that the Netilas Yadayim for the davar shetibuli b'mashke does not cover Netilas Yadayim alapas. Ve'ein tzarich loymar, and we don't even need to say, im natal yadav shaloi lechol, if somebody washed his hands, that has nothing to do with eating. Somebody washed his hands. Somebody came in from working in the garden, and his hands are dirty, so he came in and he washed his hands with hot water and soap. Nothing to do with achila. He wasn't thinking of eating an apple dipped in honey. He wasn't thinking of eating a tuna fish sandwich. He just had dirty hands, so he washed his hands. And then he's finishing washing up his hands, he's drying his hands, and his wife says, I made you a beautiful tuna fish sandwich. So now he's going to sit down and eat a tuna fish sandwich. Certainly, that netila, the netila, even if he did it with a kais, even if for some reason he decided to wash his hands from the gardening with a kais, certainly that netila, that had absolutely nothing to do with achila, that netila does not cover you for Netilas Yadayim alapas. So we basically have two halachas over here. The first halacha that we have over here is you should know, if you washed your hands for a davar shetibulei b'mashke, and now you want to eat bread, the washing for the davar shetibulei b'mashke does not cover you for Netilas Yadayim alapas. Now we're going to have to see why. Remember, if you're mechuyev to wash for a davar shetibulei b'mashke, then we learned that netila is supposed to be done according to all the halachas of Netilas Yadayim alapas. The only difference is that you don't make a bracha. So one would surmise that if somebody did wash Netilas Yadayim for a davar shetibulei b'mashke, he did the type of washing that should cover you for Netilas Yadayim alapas. So why doesn't the washing for a davar shetibulei b'mashke cover you for Netilas Yadayim alapas? The second halacha that we saw, and this is a kal v'chomer, if the washing for a davar shetibulei b'mashke doesn't cover you for Netilas Yadayim alapas, then certainly washing your hands because your hands got dirty from gardening work, certainly that doesn't cover you for Netilas Yadayim alapas. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Chavches, Yesh mi. Says the Mishnah Berurah a very interesting thing, and he brings this down from the, well, not from the berachah. Actually, the Sha'ar Tzion has quite a discussion on this. But he says like this, Hainu ladas mikzas hapoiskim shezacharti le'el ba'ois chaf. Says the Mishnah Berurah, this concept that Netilas Yadayim for a davar shetibulei b'mashke does not cover you for Netilas Yadayim alapas, this goes according to the mikzas hapoiskim, and this is really shitas Tosfos, shesvira lehu de'ein chiyav netila letibulei b'mashke b'zman hazeh. This goes according to the poskim that follow shitas Tosfos, who holds that Netilas Yadayim for a davar shetibulei b'mashke is not negeya b'zman hazeh, because it's only negeya b'zman that we keep all of the halachas of tumah and tahara. So v'lachein ein yotzei b'netilas zu l'achilas pas. According to them, if you do wash Netilas Yadayim for davar shetibulei b'mashke, you're not yotzei b'netilas Yadayim alapas. Why? So this is, it's a little bit odd what we're coming out with over here. The Mishnah Berurah is saying, you know why Netilas Yadayim for a davar shetibulei b'mashke doesn't cover you for Netilas Yadayim alapas? Very simple. Because Netilas Yadayim alapas is a chiyuv. Netilas Yadayim for a davar shetibulei b'mashke, according to the mikzas hapoiskim, who say that Netilas Yadayim is not negeya nowadays, so it's not a chiyuv. So if it's not a chiyuv, this that you went ahead and you washed for a davar shetibulei b'mashke is not a Netilas Yadayim l'shem chiyuv. And since it's not a Netilas Yadayim l'shem chiyuv, it cannot count for Netilas Yadayim alapas, which certainly is a chiyuv. So in that case, why did you wash for the davar shetibulei b'mashke? I don't know. I don't know why this person washed for a davar shetibulei b'mashke. If he's going like the mikzas hapoiskim who holds it's not a chiyuv, why did he do it? I don't know why he did it. But even if he did it, it's not considered l'shem chiyuv, because these poskim hold that there is no such chiyuv. Well, if there is no such chiyuv, then it's not a Netilah L'Shem chiyuv, and it can't cover you for a chiyuv of Netilas Yadayim ala pas. Ois kan chavtes. The second halacha over here was, if you washed your hands and it had nothing to do with eating, you washed your hands because your hands were dirty from gardening, that certainly can't cover you for Netilas Yadayim ala pas. Says the Mishnah Berurah, going for example, shayu yadam elachlachos, your hands were dirty. Unitalon, so you washed your hands. V'loy haya b'daita lechalos, and you did not have in mind to eat at all. V'nimlach lechol, and then you decided to eat. V'loy yisiach daita b'intayim, and you weren't misiach das from your hands between the washing and the eating. This is very simple. You came in, you washed your hands with nice, warm water and soap, and immediately you went into the kitchen and you saw the beautiful tuna fish sandwich that your wife so graciously made for you, and now you're going to go eat. You weren't misiach das from your hands. You just finished washing your hands this second. So you weren't misiach das. There's no reason to suspect that you touched a makam amud tanafis, you touched something dirty in between the washing and the eating. But still says the Mishnah Berurah, v'nimlach lecha v'lo yisiach taita b'tayim, b'zeh kolshkei dei netilah rishayna loloi. Certainly this washing doesn't count for the Netilas Yadayim ala pas. Deloi hoisa l'shem kedusha klal. Because this Netilas Yadayim, not only wasn't l'shem chiyuv, it wasn't l'shem kedusha at all. This wasn't a halacha dika washing for any reason. You were just washing the gardening dirt off your hands. So certainly it cannot count for Netilas Yadayim ala pas. Says the Ramah, 3 lines down, last word on the line, Hagah, however, the Ramah says, if you did wash your hands, whether you washed your hands for a davar shetibuli b'mashke, or you washed your hands to get the gardening dirt off your hands, lemay cigarette, if you washed your hands, and then immediately you want to go eat the tuna fish sandwich without any hesach hadas from your hands, yes, you need to wash again. But the Ramah paskins yital beloy bracha. You should go ahead and you should wash without a bracha. Says the Mishnah Berurah, why? Why are you washing without a bracha? Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut limud. V'im, first he says kayal kala sif. This goes on the whole sif zayin. This goes on whether you washed for a davar shetibula b'mashke or you washed to wash off the gardening dirt, which is mamish not l'shem chiyuv at all, or l'shem kiddush at all. But the bottom line is you just washed your hands, and you weren't mesiach das. And I can tell you something that I think happens to people somewhat commonly. Somebody goes to the Beis HaKisei, and he comes out of the Beis HaKisei, he washes his hands, and now immediately he wants to go eat. He wasn't mesiach das, he just washed his hands for the Beis HaKisei this second. So what do you do now? So the Mishnah Berurah says, if you washed your hands, even from dirt, and now without being mesiach das, without forgetting about your hands, so there's no chance that your hands touched something dirty, you want to go eat, so then, Eis Kat and Lamed Aleph, lo yisiach taita, if you weren't mesiach das, the Ramah said, de mesiach taita mishbirasan, because if you were mesiach das from your hands, so you weren't protecting your hands from touching anything unclean, l'kulei alma tzarich litol shenis ubebracha. If you were mesiach das from your hands, so you came out of the Beis HaKisei and now you got onto a 10-minute phone call, so you were mesiach das and you don't know, you might have scratched your head, you might have touched an uncovered part of your body, so then certainly you need to wash again, and you need to make another bracha. Does ein netilah rishayna ala klau? If you're mesiach das, then certainly the first washing cannot cover you for the Netilas Yadayim ala pas. But, says the Ramah, if you washed for any reason, and then you were not mesiach das, before you want to go ahead and eat, then you wash without a bracha. Eis Kat Lamed Beis below bracha, the kama paiskim is sfira lehudim, because many paiskim hold, the Netilas Yadayim lechulin, that when it comes to the Netilas Yadayim for eating chulin, so Netilas Yadayim ala pas, whatever, but you're eating chulin, you're not eating truma, sfira lehudim, Netilas Yadayim lechulin, afim loy kivein l'shem netila, even if the washing was not done l'shem netilas yadayim, it wasn't done l'shem netilas chiyuv, it wasn't done l'shem kedusha. Yotza im lo yisiach taita meisha not yadav. You're still yotza if you weren't mesiach das. Bottom line, The bottom line is, why are you washing your hands? The bottom line is that the chiyuv of Netilas Yadayim is to make sure that your hands are clean and your hands are tar. If you just went in and you washed your hands and you weren't Mesiach Das, your hands are not Stam Yadayim. Stam Yadayim Ashniyos L'Tumah. So Stam Yadayim means unwashed hands. Washed hands are not Stam Yadayim. They're washed. Now, if you're Mesiach Das, then they're Stam Yadayim again. But if you weren't Mesiach Das, they're not Stam Yadayim. If they're not Stam Yadayim, how is there a Chiv Netila? So many poskim say, I don't care, if you washed your hands from gardening, but you weren't Mesiach Das, then your hands are not Stam Yadayim. So you don't really need Netilas Yadayim. So we paskin do Netilas Yadayim, albeit without a bracha. We're not going to let you make a bracha. Before Divrei Beis Yosef Siman Kuf Nun Tes, you can see this shita brought down in Beis Yosef Kuf Nun Tes, Ubeshulchan Aruch Sham Sif Yud Gimel Ayin Sham, Vim Kain Yita B'Loi Bracha. So therefore, you wash without a bracha, Shema Yotza B'Netila Harishayna, because it's possible that you were Yotza Netilas Yadayim with that first washing that you did, whether it was for Tibula B'Mashke or it was for dirt. Val Netila Rishayna Lo Shaykh Levarich. Now you'll say, oh, okay, so wait a second. So I came out of the Beis HaKisei. So you're telling me that I should wash my hands without a bracha. Why? Because I can't make a bracha on the second netila, because maybe I don't need the second netila. Okay, so why don't I just make a bracha on the first netila? Says the Mishnah, you can't do that. Even though you decided to eat mamish very soon after you washed your hands, you can't go to the Beis HaKisei, say, wash your hands, come out, say, I'm going to eat a tuna fish sandwich. Oh, now I'll make an al Netilas Yadayim on the washing that I just did. No, you can't do that, because when you washed your hands, it wasn't l'shem netila. If you did it l'shem netila, you can. But if you didn't do it l'shem netila, you can't. Okay, weiter in the Ramah, 4 lines down. A little bit past the halfway mark on the line. A new halacha, which is really out of place over here. This halacha is going to come up later, and that's where we're really going to discuss it in detail. Says the Ramah, let's say you washed on Netilas Yadayim al Pas, you made a bracha, you made a moitzi, you ate challah, now you're in the middle of the meal, and in the middle of the meal, you went and you touched on an unclean part of your body. Says the Ramah, you got to go ahead and you got to wash over again. This halakha applies if you're noyig that you wash for a davar shetibulei b'mashke, so the same halakha would apply. You washed for a davar shetibulei b'mashke, you made a bari pariya eitz, you dipped your apple in the honey, you ate it, now you went and you touched an uncovered part of your body, you got to wash over again. But this is halakha that we're going to discuss in greater detail later on, where its place really is. And that's later on in Siman Kuf Samach Daled. Says the Mechaber Sivches, Mi Shahaya Bamidbar, somebody who's traveling in the wilderness, Oibim Kaim Sakana, or some other place which is also a Mokaim Sakana. So the way we read this Mechaber is, Mi Shahaya Bamidbar, somebody who's traveling in the Midbar, which is a Mokaim Sakana. Oibim Kaim Sakana, or a different type of Mokaim Sakana. Ve'ein loy mayim, and he doesn't have water with him, and he needs to eat. Potter b'Netilas Yadayim. He's exempt from the halakha of Netilas Yadayim. He can eat his tuna fish sandwich without Netilas Yadayim. Says the Mishnah Berurah Lamadal, by midbar, who gam kein atam mipnei asakana. The reason why you're potter from Netilas Yadayim in the midbar, if you don't have water, is because the midbar is a makom sakana. Im yelech v'yechapes achar mayim. We're not going to tell you that when you're traveling in a midbar, you can't eat lunch until you go search for water. You know why? Because searching for water in the midbar is putting yourself in sakana. When you're in a midbar, you need to get out of the midbar. We don't want you to start taking time, making detours and looking around and seeing if you could find water, and then chas v'chalila, before you know it, you get lost, and now you're lost and you don't have water, and now tragedy strikes. So you're in the midbar and you don't have water, you can eat without Netilas Yadayim. V'nokat midbar b'ftei atzmai, and the Mechaber mentions midbar specifically on its own, lashmi'inan distam midbar la'olam mekayim sakanu. You should know the Mechaber is teaching you. A midbar is a makom sakana. Don't tell me that you're on a good paved road and you have Waze and you have a GPS. You're in the midbar, you're in a makom sakana. Get out of there. Of course, this halach is only if you don't have water. If you have water, you're not potter from the Netilas Yadayim. Even if you know that, I passed a rest stop a little bit back. If I go back, if it's more than a mil, if it's a mil or more, you're not mechuyev to go back. Nevertheless, says the Mishnah Berurah, you should wrap your hands in something and hold your food with covered hands. You shouldn't just say, I'm potter from Netilas Yadayim, and eat with your stam yadayim. Your hands should be covered, as in accordance with the halacha that we're going to see later on in Kuf Samach Gimel in greater detail. Sif test. Sarach lizar ben Netilas Yadayim. We have to take great care with the halachas of Netilas Yadayim. Shekal hamizalzel ben Netilas Yadayim. Anybody who treats Netilas Yadayim in a kuladika fashion, anybody who's mizalzel, treats it lackadaisically, chayiv nidui, he's really mechuyev to be put into cherim. He should be excommunicated. Ubali de anius, and he will come to poverty. V'nekar min ha'olam, and he will never pass away. Mitoich anius, he will pass out of this world. Very strong words over here for something that ultimately is a din d'Rabbanan. This is a gzeira mishum srach truma. And nowadays we don't even have truma. So it's mehera yibana amigdash mishum srach truma. But you see over here, if you're mezalzel chas v'chalila and Netilas Yadayim, and there are those shittas that say that this is true, even if you're mezalzel in Netilas Yadayim even one time. If you take a look at the Ber Hetiv, Oiskan Tezayin, he says, afilu pamachas, even one time. Then he brings down from Rashi. Rashi says it means that he always eats without Netilas Yadayim. But you see how chomer this is. Some say even one time if you're mezalzel in Netilas Yadayim. It says over here that your bali de anius. It's interesting that the berachah of al Netilas Yadayim, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu. Al starts with an ayin. Netilas starts with a nun. Yadayim starts with a yud. That's Rosh Tevis Ani. The bracha of al Netilas Yadayim saves you from anius. It's also brought down, I think, that the Rosh Tevis, al Netilas Yadayim, ayin nun yud, and the Soif Tevis, Lamid, Saf, Mem, are Bigamatria Ashir. I didn't do the math. I just remembered it right now. I didn't do the math. You could check it out and see if it's accurate. But that's what I remember hearing. So it brings you to Ashiras. It's also, there's a Gemara in Saita. The Gemara in Saita that says anybody who eats pas without Netilas Yadayim, it's similar to if he would have lived with a Zaina. Why? What's the comparison between having relations with a Zaina and eating pas without Netilas Yadayim? The relationship is that it's derech hefker. If you eat, when we eat, we don't eat toich hefkerus. We eat mitoich halacha. So there's a seder to eating. The seder to eating is you wash, you make a bracha on Netilas Yadayim, you make a bracha rishayna on the pas. You eat. After you finish eating, you bench. If you didn't wash on pas, you make a bracha rishayna, you make a bracha achrayna. Our eating is not hefker. Somebody who lives with a zayna, that's hefkerus. Also bilas nus, that's hefkerus. So that's hefkerus, and this is hefkerus. That's the dimyan. Okay, we're going to stop over here. We'll continue next time, Yirtzeh Hashem, with Sif Yud. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The source of limud HaTorah should be megan against Klal Yisrael. The Rosh should say, Yeshua is the first panasat shetuchim to all those in need. We should be zeicher to see the B'Yas Gal Tzedek. B'mehera v'yameinu amen. Be well.